Yesterday, I went to see the Superman movie. I'm a bit late to the party here because I really had planned to go and see it last Friday, but the weather here was terrible. It was so hot. I was completely flaked out. I didn't want to go. So I waited a week and I went the following Friday, yesterday. It was a movie I was really looking forward to. I was very excited. If you've seen my Supergirl video, you realise that I was really stoked for this film. And I enjoyed it a lot. It was great. But because I didn't see it last week, I kind of avoided all of the online discourse. I was trying to avoid spoilers, the plague of modern movie-going. Not that we ever worried about spoilers back in the day. I remember knowing the great reveal in Empire Strikes Back weeks before I went to see it, and we just didn't seem to care. But we do now, obviously, and I didn't want to be spoiled. So I didn't look at any of the reviews that had been put out. With the exception of, I watched the Mark Kermode review, because I always like his reviews. Anyway, I had not read any of the reviews, so yesterday when I got back, I sat down and started looking at what other YouTubers had thought about the film. I was quite shocked, because I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was superb. And I was quite shocked that there's quite a lot of narratives around the movie, that it's not doing well, it's not very good. I'm like, well, that's not the movie that I saw. Having read the other reviews, I thought I'd put throw my hat into the ring, as they say, and give my thoughts. So I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was absolutely superb. And it feels like a comic book. It's got that comic book experience, probably more so than most superhero movies. Most superhero movies don't really feel like comic books. We've had movies in the past, like Ang Lee's Hulk springs to mind, that was presented in a very comic book way, with all the transitions and the fades and everything, and things being presented in panels on screen. But even that movie didn't feel like a comic book, because obviously film is a different language, but this really did feel like a comic book. It had that sort of experience that you got as a kid. You'd go to the dentist or something and you'd be stuck in a waiting room and there'd be comics. So you'd pick up a random comic and you didn't know where you were in the story. You didn't know what had gone on before. Obviously some important things have just happened, but you start reading anyway, because comics, there's one story's just ended, there's always another one coming along. And that's exactly what happens in this movie. It starts pretty much at the end of the last story, which we kind of get filled in with sort of exposition going backwards, explaining what's gone on before. Very quickly, very briefly, but obviously it all sets the scene for what this story is going to be about. Very well done. In a way, it's kind of like the James Bond thing, where, the really great James Bond movies, they sort of start with an action sequence from the last story, and then that leads into the action of the new story. And it's got that feel about it as well. But it does feel like a comic book, that you kind of dropped into the middle of a world and everything's already in motion. Superman is already here, he's already revealed to the world. There's no origin story in this. It's just assumed that, we know who he is, and, pretty much we all do. I liked that aspect. I thought that was really good, the way that it just got you straight into the action, literally straight into the action. And it was a fun movie. There was a lot of action in the movie. There was perhaps a little bit too much levity for the likes of some. I found that refreshing, particularly after the sort of maudlin, sort of dirge fest stuff that we've had with Superman from Zack Snyder, which, best not to go into. I mean, I kind of enjoy those movies, but they're very dark, just not really suitable for children at all, which is a big failing, really, when you're making a superhero movie, in my opinion. You've got to make a movie that is suitable for the whole family, and this movie is that. Maybe not so much very young children, because, there is a little bit of violence, there's a little bit of cursing, and there's a couple of quite gruesome moments. It is a 12A in the UK. I don't know what the certificates are like elsewhere around the world, but for very young children, maybe a little bit of caution, as always, advised. But for most kids, they're going to love this film. And it's fun. It's really fun. Tonally, in that terms, it reminded me of... it reminded me of Superman 3. It's a better movie than Superman 3, the one from back in the 80s with Christopher Reeve and Richard Pryor. It also reminded me of Mystery Men, which, if you've seen that, you'll know. That is a sort of a parody spoof superhero movie that really should have done much better than it did. I think the only problem they had with that movie is it came out 10 years too early. If it had come out in the midst of the Marvel obsession, I think it would have been a blockbuster. But this movie, Superman, has got a lot of humour. It's not got the sort of parody aspect that Mystery Men has, but tonally it did sort of have a lot of that sort of thing going for it. It is a very funny film, and it's possibly a knee-jerk reaction from the Zack Snyder stuff, that humourless and dark, and this is not that at all. It does have a lot of action, and it's breakneck. It really is breakneck. But it's well paced. It's really well paced. And the key relationship between Clark and Lois was really beautifully written, very well done, and beautifully performed as well. The two actors were just perfect, in my opinion. There are 3 key scenes. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but there were 3 key scenes. They have a few other scenes around the planet and stuff, the Daily Planet. They have a 3 key scenes that that plot the trajectory of their sort of relationship, and they're really, all 3 of them are really well done. The first one it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, the interview scene, which obviously is a reference back to the interview scene in the Donna movie from '78. Had a very different sort of tone and outcome here. It's really, really well acted. So on that, I'll get into the cast, because I thought the casting was absolutely perfect in this film. So obviously the first piece of casting would be Superman himself, and I'd never seen David Corenswet in anything before. He's a newcomer to me. Took a little bit of time for me to sort of adjust to him, as we've seen a lot of actors play Clark over the years now. And it's always the same. It's the same with Bond. It takes you a little bit of time to adjust to a new face in the role. But I thought by about sort of 25 minutes in, he'd sold me. I was all on board. I was like, yeah, this guy is Superman. And he's really, really good. And his portrayal of Superman is just brilliant. It's the Superman that really we've needed for a long, long time. That we didn't get with the Zack Snyder movies because he was too dark, morose, brooding. He's none of that in this movie. He's kind, compassionate, noble, very good. The sort of character that we recognise as Superman from the comic books. And he's funny as well. He's got some quite humorous moments in this. There's a lot of humour in the film, but his performance it sort of built. It built and built and built. For me, by about 25 minutes in, I was fully on board, and by the end of the movie, I was like, yeah, this guy's the ticket. He's really, really good. And another new face to me, I don't watch a great deal of movies and TV these days, but Lois Lane was Rachel Brosnahan, and she was perfect, absolutely perfect. She managed to, she got quite a lot of screen time, and she had a good arc in the story that was really well written. And she managed to portray the 2 sides of that, because Lois is a character with 2 sides in the same way that Clark is. That she's got that side where she's the feisty, intrepid reporter that's always getting into scrapes and always keen to unearth the truth and get to the kernel of the story. But then she's got to have that sort of vulnerability and the softer side to her character. And Rachel Brosnahan was absolutely pitch perfect. She was just great. Again, I've never seen her in anything else, so this is my only sort of view of her. But she was brilliant, really, really good. And then there's Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult. I've seen Nicholas Hoult in other films, in the Mad Max movie and the X-Men movies. So I knew that guy, but wow, he was great. He was probably the closest Lex Luthor on screen to the Lex Luthor from the comic books, at least the Superman comics that I've read. Very dark, malevolent, a real nasty piece of work. And he brought out that sort of envious, petty, because obviously Lex Luthor is the archetypal tyrant. He's the patriarchal tyrant sort of character who has everything. He's a billionaire, he's got intelligence, he's got, fame, he's got a beautiful woman on his arm, he's got more money than he can ever hope to spend, but he's not content. And he's not content because he's envious. He envies Superman, and he disguises that envy in hatred of Superman because he's an alien, and he's, but ultimately it's not that. That's just the excuse he tells himself. It's envy. And Nicholas Hoult brought all of that out. He was, obsessive. He was malevolent, sinister. Just very, very good performance. And brought out the side of the character that, doesn't get brought out all that often in other movies that we've seen, that, Luther is, a genius. He has formidable skills of his own that he can bring to bear, his technology, his money. Very, very good performance. And then the Justice Gang. We got Nathan Fillion, who, again, I recognise from Firefly and other things. He was great. He just played Guy Gardner really well. Yeah, a very, very humorous performance. Not in it a great deal. In it far more was Mr. Terrific. I had to look this actor up because I didn't know it. Eddie Cathegi. He was great, and Mr. Terrific played a really big part in the film. I really wanted to see more of Mr. Terrific. I thought he was a breakout character in this. Really good. He's a character that I've read some Justice Society books in the past, and he's a character that I always kind of knew about but didn't know a great deal about, if you know what I mean. But I really thought he was terrific. Like everyone else, I think, who's seen the movie, I'm keen to read more Mr. Terrific. I want to know more about this character. He was great, and Eddie Gathegi's performance was really good as well. He played him with a great intensity. Yeah, wow, he was really good, but funny as well. Still, that aspect that he was riffing off that sort of intensity to sort of get squeeze jokes out of the situations, and it was really, really good. As I said, Nathan Fillion was great, and then Isabella Merced, Hawk Girl, didn't have a lot in it. She did have sort of a couple of moments where she really got to shine. I like that actress. I thought she was great in Madam Web, which I like. I love Madam Web. I thought it was a good movie. Take that as you will. She didn't get a lot to do in this movie, but it's good to see Hawk Girl on screen. She was good as well. And then the rest of the cast was really good. I thought the guy playing Jimmy Olsen, I don't know the actor's name, was really funny and really good. And then Eve, guess is Miss Tessmacher, but she was never called that in the film. She had a good role as well, and very well performed. Really, from top to bottom, the cast was absolutely superb. They all really had either a line or a moment to shine. It was great. The villains, again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but the sort of subsidiary villains, if you will, were also really well performed. For me, the star of the show was, and I thought, again, if you go back to my Supergirl video, you'll see that I thought this was going to be the case, and I think it is, was Krypto. Krypto was just knockout from start to finish. I love that. I mean, what's not to love? He's a superpowered dog. He had some really great moments, and he was great. There's a couple of cameos in the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything. And there's a slight change to Superman's origin story, which I actually didn't mind. These origin stories have been around for such a long time, and origin stories change. Can change at the drop of a hat. I mean, we've had changes in stories and things that happened in stories all the way back to Odysseus. So I mean, yeah, the change that was made here served the story and serviced the story really well, and added a whole level of drama to the thing. And it's kind of the basis of the arc of the whole movie. Anyway, you don't want to hear me witter on forever about this movie, especially if I'm not going to get into spoilers and things. So what can I say? It's the best Superman movie we've had since probably Superman 2, back in whenever that was, 81. Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. And the music was great. The John Williams score swells up in the background 3 or 4 times at key moments, and it's really nice to have that touch. If you've got a fantastic, legendary piece of music like that, use it, And on the subject of scores, I don't do scores. But if I were to imagine myself giving this film a score, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. I really thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And if you haven't seen it, if you're the one person left who hasn't seen this movie, and you somehow happen upon my humble little video here, and you're on the fence, take the chance. Go and see it. It's great. It's a fun movie. It's perhaps a little bit of an overcorrection from the sort of dark snooze fest that we've had with Superman in the last 10 years. But I would much rather have that than have this than that. It's a great movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think you would too. And these narratives that are going around, I know everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I think there's a lot of down-talking of this movie that isn't really merited at all, which is why I've made this video. So give it a shot. It's a great film, and see what you think. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. If you're like my other listener, waiting for the next part of Perseus, I will get on to that. I do plan to finish those recordings. I've got 2 more chapters to do. I've kind of had it on the back burner for the last 3 or 4 weeks because I'm in the middle of writing a novella, which I'm hoping to get out for the end of this month. So have a look out for that. I've got a new novella that should be on Amazon, hopefully, as I say, fingers crossed, by the end of the month. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and have a great one. I'll see you on the next.